Hey everyone, welcome to the Gilbert.K show. She's the force behind Oscar-nominated Ascension and Venice-winning Mistress Dispeller. Meet Maggie Lee. From Shanghai to Sundance, she's producing the docs shaking up the global film scene. With projects backed by BBC, Nat Geo, and PBS, her lens captures stories that matter. If you love bold filmmaking, this convo with Maggie Lee is your backstage pass to the future of docs. Let's welcome Maggie Lee.
Okay. Hey, Maggie, how are you today?
Great, feeling great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on the show. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to watch a clip or a trailer from your reel and what we're going to be seeing.
I'd love everybody to watch Ascension first.
Okay.
And basically, it's a feature doc about China that took us about 4 years to make. The director is Jessica Kingdom. And I would say Ascension is such a unique film in its sense that it doesn't have a storyline or a narration. So it's basically an observational doc trying to depict the social class ascension of China with the focus on the manufacturing scene in China, which is, what China's mostly known about globally. So, and the music itself is great because it's so experimental that really helped the fact that it doesn't have a story or a narration because it can get really boring in that case. But the music really made it happen and made it magical. And the visual are stunning.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's watch it.
编号的一家外资企业。
我们的话不能关了，不能部门随便挑随便选。
说废话，把你卖掉！
回去。
Okay, great. Could you start telling me a little bit about yourself and what sparked your interest in producing?
So my name is Maggie Lee and I'm based in Shanghai, China. I've spent my whole life in China, but due to some serendipity story, which I'm going to tell you, that I started my role in the producing in the film industry, basically. What inspired me, I wouldn't even call it an active decision because it was more like I said, a serendipity because back in 2017, I was working in Shanghai as a simultaneous interpreter between Chinese and English. And one night in a bar, it starts with the bar story, yes.
Yeah.
One night in a bar, I was just waiting for friends who were late, and there was another guy who was waiting for friends who were late, and so we started drinking and playing pool together. But he is a director who's just got back from the US and working in Shanghai Media Group. And so like a month later or something, we just became friends basically after that. And a month later, he phoned me up and he said, Maggie, I know you're an interpreter, but there's recently so much inquiries from outside of China, from BBC, from Nat Geo, from PBS, and everybody wants to come into China and make China stories. And they need bilingual assistants, directors, producers, they all need it because they don't know anything about the language or the culture itself. So that's how I started. And I was basically a director or producer assistant interpreting for them, but doing errands like buying coffee, signing release forms and stuff like that. That's how I started. And the next thing you know, the very first project that I was a producer for, which started shortly after I entered the industry, was Ascension, which took us to the Oscars 4 years later.
Wow.
That's the nutshell of my story. Yep.
That's amazing. So what's one of your most memorable experience when you started out? Probably you already touched on that.
I would say looking back from now, I mean, back then I wouldn't have known. Like, but the funny story about how I got, I mean, literally I was nobody. I was just starting off in the industry. Why on earth would a director with the Oscar potential come to me, right? So the story goes like this. I was the assistant for a much more senior producer in China at that time. And Jessica, the director for Ascension, reached out to her. And but also because Ascension is also the first directorial debut for Jessica and for me as a producer. So Jessica wasn't that famous yet. And the email of shot list that she wants to cover, if you watch the film, you'll know, because it has crazy shots like AI sex doll factory, Trump hat factory, the Asia's largest water park, and the Atlantis resort that has a whole wall in a hotel room. That's the aquarium. So you would see sharks swim by you, by your bed. Those kind of scenes. That's the crazy contemporary China that's happening right now, which is not presented. And so the senior producer saw this random and crazy shot list and said, this director is clueless about how difficult it is to film in China. And the shot list is random. The payment is okay, and everything like that. And she's like, look, Maggie, I mean, you've been helping me for a couple of months, and if you want to make some research money, you should take this project and just like work with them.
Oh, wow.
And literally she pushed this Oscar project to me, and that's how I got where I am.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
very inspiring. So how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
I would say resilient, fun and adventure seeking, and perfectionist.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. What's one fun fact about you that most people might not know?
Doesn't have to be relevant to film industry, right?
No, it doesn't have to.
I have an irresistible urge to climb trees after I drink.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What's
But
the highest tree you climbed?
I mean, any tree that I see after I
Wow.
drink. Like, yeah, I will be drinking with my friends. The next thing, they turn around, they'll be seeing me on the
climbing.
trees. Yeah.
And how do you get down? Is it easy?
Yeah, pretty easy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. What's crazy is also I tend to wear these like traditional Chinese dresses. So I'll be climbing in them, and they'll be like, "What?"
That's funny. So what hobbies do you have? What do you do for fun other than climbing trees?
I'm like a travel maniac. I mean, making documentaries itself takes me everywhere within China, across the vast land of China, which is mesmerizing itself because China is just so huge in terms of area and in terms of cultural diversity and everything. And then outside of China, of course, there's so much more to explore. So even when I'm not working and traveling, I am traveling like constantly. Like for the past couple of months, I've been traveling with all the film festivals, but also I mean, the drive for me, not only, of course, to enjoy the fruit of my work, but also all these new countries and cultures that I've read about and watched about, but have never really experienced myself. So that's like one big excitement, and that keeps my passion for life going in general. I mean, that shares the similarity of why I really stick to documentary as a career too, because there's no other job at the moment that I would prefer be doing.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, let's move on to the next segment. It's a small game we play on the show. It's called This or That. And in this fun game, I'll give you 2 options. And you have to pick the one you like the most or the one that fits you better. And there are no wrong answers, and you don't need to explain your choice unless you'd like to. It's all about quick, fun decisions for the audience to get to know you. Are you ready, Maggie?
Yep, I'm ready.
Let's go. So, indie films or blockbusters?
Indie films.
Film festivals or streaming platforms?
Film festivals.
Original script or adaptations?
Original script.
Historical dramas or futuristic sci-fi?
That's a hard one. Historical.
Limited budget creativity or big budget spectacle?
Ooh, oh my god. I mean, I want to. Of course, everybody wants enough budget to play with their creativity, but the reality is oftentimes the first option, limit budget creativity, when there's no restraint set. So I would go with the reality.
Okay. Collaborative direction or producer-led decisions?
The first one, direction, which is why I'm making that transition right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practical effects or CGI?
Practical.
Filming on location or studio sets?
Filming on location.
Award-winning acclaim or box office success?
Box office.
Success. Documentaries or narrative fiction?
Documentary.
Yeah, I shouldn't ask this one, but anyways.
Very easy.
Casting new talent or working with established stars?
At the moment, I would go with working with established stars.
Established stars.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next segment. And can you tell me a little bit about the journey or inspiration behind your work or project? And can you talk a little bit about the documentary, The Latest Game? I understand it was nominated at Sundance Film Festival and other festivals.
Oh, you mean the dating game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or any project you want to talk about.
Right. Yeah, because the dating game literally just premiered at Sundance, and I would say comparatively, my role in this project is not as full in and dedicated as Ascension and Mistress Dispeller, who I'm the producer for. So I would still go with Ascension first, because that's, like you said, so memorable. It's like 4 years effort, and also I was such a newbie at that time, so everything I was trying for this project is a learning curve, and is a testimony to how I sort of was already a producer way before I knew the job of producer exists. Because, I mean, there's another word that we call producer, which is a fixer. I mean, for me, it's not even a lower level as producer, because it tells the essence of a producer, because it's the person that fixes every single problem about the shoot, about the project. Yeah. So I was a fixer, in other word, problem solver, before, way before, like when I was in college and everything. I just wouldn't take no as an answer. I would just, if I want something, or if I want to help other people achieve something, I would just go for it and not let go until I get it done. And that has been a trait that my friends constantly told me, that you just never let go. You're a go-getter. I'm like, sure I am. And so, but it's basically, it didn't dawn on me until later in life that it transitioned very smoothly to the producer role, because I accidentally got this project, Ascension, but if I hadn't had all these abilities that I already had in my personality, which is perseverance, and being a newbie also helps, because I wouldn't say the same thing as the senior producer said, oh, those are impossible to get to film in China. I would just sometimes for one access to a factory, I would make 40 cold calls, and being screamed at, being yelled at, being called a liar, a fraud, and saying I'm gonna call the police. Really, I was crying after 40 cold calls, but I still picked up the phone and made the 41st and got the access. And that's summarizes a lot of how I got, because I wasn't really that connected, because in order to make access, you're either you have really strong connections already, you make a few phone calls and people already willingly help you, or you make a ton of cold calls, or you just start from the first level of PR communication to up to the headquarters if you want to film a big company and all that. But I tried everything. I just wouldn't let go. Anything that the director listed out, I never even once said, I'm not going to try. I'm not just going to tell you that is not possible. So that part says the resilient part about me. And then the Mistress Dispeller, which premiered at Venice Film Festival, actually, last September. and we've won over 15 awards globally and screened at over 50 different film festivals, I think. So I'm very proud of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this
How
one
was the Venice
particularly.
experience?
Oof. So, I mean, my very first film festival is Oscars, so it only goes downhill from that. But Venice still is such a unique experience itself, just even because of the location that it's in, the canals, the water taxi, and the glamorous stars and all that. But it was very spectacular. I mean, it was really hot, but other than the hotness, I would say it's everything like an adventure that I was expecting for, and the audience reaction and everything. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So yeah, for Mistress Dispeller, I'm particularly proud as well because it's such a different style and of different nature than Ascension. Because like I said, Ascension is a very observational, experimental feature doc about China, while Mistress Dispeller is a very specifically story and subject oriented feature, because basically it's this profession that only exists in China called mistress dispelling. And so in order to explore the more universal theme that exists everywhere, which is people's struggle and frustration in intimate relationships, love, and marriage, so we sort of peeked into the scene of China through this angle of mistress dispelling, when a person in marriage is cheating and the other person pays a lot of money to hire a mistress dispeller to dispel the mistress. I mean, the story itself sounds crazy enough, but then it also sets the tone of how difficult it is to convince everybody to be on the screen, to be on the film without any coverage, because it's not a news report, it's a story. So that was basically the most nerve-wracking producing experience for me, because I realized I wake up every day thinking, okay, everybody can just tell me today they're dropping out, and it's totally understandable because it's so much at risk for them to be part of a film, so yeah, it's a nightmare that turned out to be very, very satisfying.
Yeah. That's amazing. How did your experience shape your approach to producing?
I would say producing is such a vague term of categorizing all the abilities that's required of a producer. So I have not heard of anyone who's professionally trained to be, or academically trained to be a producer. It seems to me almost in a way, just like how the Mistress Dispeller is not even trained psychologically in any way to do this job, while obviously it involves a lot of psychological knowledge and practices, and even things more than that. So producer for me is also that kind of a sum of everything. You have to be a people person. You have to be really, really attentive to details, and have almost been a perfectionist in to different degrees, because you're the person who's going to have to make sure every detail in every shoot goes on perfectly, and then in the end you have the perfect footage and scenes that the director want. And resilience, like I said, and communication, and a caring heart, really, because it's really easy for people to tell that you don't really care about them per se, and you just want something out of them. You just want a film out of them. And once people feel that, you're not going to have a good filmmaker subject relationship, and which leads to the fact that you're just not going to have a good film, and let alone friendships or other life serendipities that derive out of it, which I have a lot. Like, I literally become lifelong friends with the Trump hat factory owner that I cold called for the 41st time, who's not a Trump supporter. But literally, there's so many more stories after each time I finish a subject. I just became lifelong friends with almost everybody that I encounter on the project.
Wow, that's amazing. So how do you what interests you in a project? If somebody has a project and they want to talk to you about it, what interests you in a project?
I would say, like, I haven't really set up a standard or a criteria for me to choose the projects that I take in, but very strangely, like from Ascension to Mistress, Dispeller to the dating game and to the one that I'm working on, which is a documentary across 20 years, very miraculously, I've been working with female directors in so many different cultures and countries. And I would say my strong suit, in a way, is that I am good at making China stories happen. Because literally, if I go out of China, I mean, I speak bilingual languages, but I don't know any other culture as I do deeply about Chinese culture. So I wouldn't, in terms of every aspect, I wouldn't be doing as good of a producing job, I think, as I do when it comes to China stories. So I would say at the moment, that is my strong suit and my preference as well. Because I think China, still, as much as China comes up in all the news and everything else, it doesn't have enough indie documentary presentation globally, which allows people to see what's the real China. And I don't like the fact that most of the documentaries I still see about China are always picking on it. Like it picks a newsworthy or a
Stereotype.
Right, a stereotypical, a sensational keyword, and then dwell on it. I'm just like, enough news and propaganda already do that. We need more real things. What's the normal Chinese people like? What are Chinese people like in bars when they're drunk? Or like, nobody knows that, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's a ridiculous fact.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What was one unexpected challenge you faced when getting started? Or challenges when you started?
When I started, so it still probably goes back to Ascension then. Unexpected. Honestly, as the newbie, I wasn't even expecting anything. I cried a lot. I got frustrated. But then I pull myself together and just keep going. I would say what I'm really appreciative is the fact that for my very first project, of course, everybody starting new in any industry get frustrated easily, but what matters so much, what gets you keep going, of course, it's your own determination, but also when the first group of people you worked with or who are happy to be your mentor are such nice, caring, down-to-earth people that you can see as your role model and that you can get comfort from them. When you made a mistake, obviously newbies make mistake, instead of some brawling criticism and yelling, you get instead, Maggie, it's okay. When we all started off, like even as a pretty successful director, we all made mistake. I got yelled at by, some random people who think they're important, and really in the end of the world, nothing would make the world end, even if it's the biggest mistakes. Look at everybody in the world in every industry who are fucking up big time and they don't care even. So hearing that from people you look up to is so important for people who are just starting anywhere. It's not over criticizing yourself and getting going and get over the mistake easily and not letting it become a PTSD of any sort. So I would say that's a very precious process when I was just starting off that happened to me.
That's great. And how do you see producing or filmmaking evolving in the next few years, do you think?
Based on what I summarized about the abilities that's required of a producer, I actually believe producing is one of the many jobs in the film industry that cannot be replaced by AI. I know you didn't ask about AI, but that's the obvious kind of everybody talking about. I would say because it doesn't have a formula and it requires attending to a million details in the non-algorithm way. It's not something you put in and be like, boom, produce a good friendship with these 8 subjects. Like, you can't do that. So in a way, I would say producing is very much still precious, as much as the creative aspect of a director or other crew. But producing, for me, I don't even see it evolving because, again, it involves all the quintessential abilities and features that makes a caring human being. So that has been the same. I wouldn't say that emotions don't evolve, to my understanding. If anything, all the emotions that we think evolved, if you really look deep down into it, the essence of it has remained the same even since day one of modern society or the evolution period of time. So I really think, I mean, even when technology is developing so crazily in a way that people seem to lose control of it, but if we come back to the core and essence of what human beings have hold dearly to throughout the thousands of years, then the solution doesn't seem that far away from us.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next segment, let's watch another trailer from a work. What we're going to be watching or listening
That'll be
to?
the Mistress Dispeller. Like I briefly mentioned, the Mistress Dispeller is about this lady who works as a Mistress Dispeller in the center part of China, and allegedly she dispels 800 mistresses a year, which is a very, very successful business. But I would say what's special about this film is in the whole process of making this film, as filmmakers, we set out to never malign or anybody's name in this love story, because we want to picture a dilemma, a struggle that is universally relatable to everybody, across different cultures, and especially for women in this story. Because really, I mean, I'm generalizing, but by proportion, it is true there's more cheating men than cheating women in a marriage. So the role of the wife and the mistress are often, like the mistress especially, is criticized big time across different cultures, to even without knowing any specific details of anybody's life. Is like, that's the person who caused the drama, who seduced or whatever. But just because people's tendency is to do this, it is exactly why we didn't want to malign anybody's name telling this story. We wanted people to know these subjects as real person, why it led to this decision, and why the wife would hold on to a marriage that obviously had serious problems, and what are the problems that the couples already ignored that led to the extramarital affair. And honestly, if the internal problems don't get solved, it doesn't matter which mistress it is, it will be just a lot more in the future. So for us to follow that kind of story for almost 3.5-4 years is it's a pretty incredible journey to be able to get that private into people's lives.
That's amazing. Okay, let's watch or listen to the clip.
这个是老公，这个是老婆，这个是婚外情。他们3个人谁痛苦谁快乐。
我在就是不管求助者他是婚姻有问题还是出现第三者了，
因为他没有方法，我们就可以告诉他方法呀，甚至我们可以帮他解决这个问题。
你离，孩子跟谁？
Okay, let's move on to the next segment. What's one crucial piece of advice you would give someone interested in producing?
Crucial piece of advice. Realizing it is okay to be frustrated, and realizing that not every criticism you get is right, and realizing there are always going to be assholes, and develop the ability to recognize assholes and move on quickly with it. Because once you're dedicated enough to a project, then you would automatically just sift through all the assholes who are just, we're just not gonna help you or even do things that are normal to you, but instead set up obstacles for you. I would say be resilient and have faith in yourself. Surround yourself with very caring and nice industry people, even when sometimes the pay is very little. It's important to accumulate those experiences and good vibes working in this industry. That's the only way you can keep going.
That's great. Yeah, I think there's a question here. Can you share a moment when you faced a significant obstacle and how you overcame it? You already talked about that stuff, but do you have anything else to add?
Yeah. If I use Mistress Dispeller as an example, that almost 2 years into the project, at that time we already put a lot of money, effort, and everything into it. The main subject, the protagonist, Miss Wong, the successful Mistress Dispeller, she really freaked out and got really angry for no reason and said, no, I'm quitting this project and you're not allowed to use any of the films that you've already done. That was just like a lightning stroke. I mean, and there's nothing we can do about it really, because even though, even after all the subjects sign release forms, they have the full right to back out when they, over time they evaluate or assess that they no longer want to participate or there's more risk involved along the way and all that, which is totally understandable really. If I am her, I would have all those emotional surges and anxiety attacks as well. So she literally dropped out for 2 whole months, which of course was a huge nightmare for me as a producer, because I can't let that happen. But then at the same time, I know it's wrong to keep pushing her personally and also for the project, because I think the only way, for my evaluation, the only way to do it is to let her anxiety sit, but also doing a little bit of side things at the same time. So which is why I was really glad that I maintained really good friends with all of her colleagues. So she has a company, and with her co-founder of the company. So instead of pushing her constantly, I was just doing all the liaison side work with everybody around it to let it happen. But at the same time, I can't really just rely on it. So I was in a way casting very broadly across China on different medias, on TikTok and writing forums, blogs, and everything, casting wives and mistresses in those situations, and going to meet them, go have dinner with the desperate wives, go shopping with the mistress. I was turning myself into a Mistress Dispeller in a way, self-trained. But I would just go on and do whatever possibility is out there to keep things going. But that was a very nerve-wracking 2 months for me, not knowing whether we will still have a project.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, what's one common misconception about producing that you'd like to clear up? Or if there's any misconception, you think?
I would say a lot of people ask me the question, what are the roles of a producer, or how many types of producers there are in the industry, which is a totally reasonable question, because for example, if I am to categorize it, it's not an official definition in any way. If I am to categorize it, there's a producer, there's so many titles too: co-producer, associate producer, producer, executive producer, consulting producer, all these things, and they represent different roles. But I would also say it means different things in the context of a different individual project. For example, a co-producer in one documentary can mean way more than maybe even a executive producer in another project, because of different dedications and different role assignment and all that. But typically executive producers are financiers who invested in it, or who are associated with the films, or are executives of a company that invested in the film, that they can directly be executive producers. But for me personally, I'm the one major type of producer who uses the budget to make things happen, basically. And there's another big type of producers who are very specialized in getting the money, applying for all kinds of grants and funds and everything, from film festivals, from different production companies and all that. So I would say those are the 2 major core producing types of the documentary industry, at least. I know there are a lot of producers who are just rich enough and bring their own money in as well as the investor. So
That's it. That's a good clarification. I was going to ask you about that, but you already responded. How do you stay motivated and inspired, especially during challenging times?
Oh God, it's almost like a inherent drive, again, to not take no as an answer, but also to not say no. It's not a very good habit. It's just like once I make that decision that this is a great director, I want to make every vision of the directors come true, and I take it in deeply as my own project as well. I just don't even think about dropping out or not trying. Like, and then my motivation. To it and... Yeah, I commit to it, and I just don't even give it a second thought. I would just keep trooping on. You can't have second thought. It's like, you know. But also at the same time, I think it's my passion and the joy that I have in this career as a documentary filmmaker itself that's always sitting in my core, and that's kind of subconsciously supporting every decision, every attempt that I have to make things come true. I really love documentarian as a lifestyle, because like I said, it allows me to sort of satisfy my need to
tell stories,
get under the skin, get good stories, get under the skin of so many private stories, lives, industry scenes, social phenomenon and everything, get behind the scene and really see it in a different way as a bystander, you know. And that joy and pleasure that I have is just incomparable to any other.
That's great. Okay, let's watch a final clip. What are we gonna watch or listen to?
So we're gonna watch The Dating Game, which is also sort of was made during a similar period of time as Mistress, Dispeller. And it's funny, these are two feature films about, by and large, the love scenes in China. I mean, the Mistress, Dispeller focuses on the marriage scene and the behavior of cheating and the aftermath and all that. But The Dating Game sort of focuses on the younger generation of China. And because due to the one-child policy, there's now, by 2030, I believe, there's going to be 30 million more men than women in China. So that huge gender gap by population is definitely causing phenomenons at the moment. And so The Dating Game sort of focuses on this one thing, that dating coaches in China are sought after services, because there are so many single eligible men. It's ironic because there's more men so
than women.
It should have been the logic is yes, so it is generally harder for them to find a partner, but then also due to a very culturally specific standard of choosing a spouse, which in China at the moment is still, especially in rural areas, it focuses more on how much the man can provide, right? I mean, universally at the same time, but also specifically, it's a typical standard to be listed out that the man should have a house, a car, a stable job up to a certain income level to be considered an eligible husband, and to be, you know, having some advantages in the market of love, basically. And so these men would seek out, spend the limited amount of money that they can spend with their income to for the services of a dating coach, to teach them how to dress up and look chic, to teach them how to post social media pictures and how to talk to girls and pick up girls on the streets and stuff like that. So it's a fascinating, and it's a completely different style and genre of documentary than Mistress, Dispeller. There's so many laughs. At Sundance, we had 5 sold out screenings. People laughed from beginning to end and everything. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's watch the clip or listen to it.
那行，豪哥，你有空帮我和一个一挖掘挖掘。这个就是我给你发过一个对象喜欢的女孩，摸不清楚。 其实好多我感觉这些好多东西也是很简单的，它就是一层窗纸，对，就怎么破的感觉，就是这种。哎呀，仔细深究的话，感觉我的爱情观 low 了。
他又发个朋友圈，我给他点了个赞，我操！
你点个赞，再给他评论一下。
他之前就是这样被我删了，我就说删我自己。
很烦你是吧？好，那你点个赞就行了。
Okay, great. Is there one last thought or piece of advice you'd like to share with our listeners or audience?
Piece of advice. Well, because at the moment, like I said, I'm trying to transition from the role of producer to director and sort of let out more of my creative side, because it's satisfying enough to help other people realize their artistic vision, but then gradually over time I do realize that I have a lot to say and really put out in the world about China and about other things as well, instead of just being the assistant in a way. So once I decided to start this journey, I talked to a lot of other of my filmmakers established as well, and there's one thing that they told me that was very enlightening. It's funny and enlightening at the same time, but it's very comforting, because realizing that's something from established filmmakers. So they told me, they're like, Maggie, you just realize that it's perfectly normal, and it still happens to all of us, that once you start a project and have creative process in the going, and you're gonna wake up most of the times thinking, I'm a piece of shit, and what I'm working on, where's the meaning of all the things that I'm working on? Should I really persist? You're gonna just wake up with hundreds of doubts about yourself and about your projects, and question whether there's still meaning in persisting, because it's grueling. It's suffering a lot of the times as well, because you need to finance it, you need to get the creative going, you need to manage all of those things. But 1% of the time, you're gonna wake up thinking, I'm a freaking genius, and you remember to take in that 1% of the time, because it is true. The fact that you've made it this far and you've started it is already enough for you to believe in that 1% in yourself, rather than, because there are so many other voices and people out there who are ready to just jump on you and criticize you and say what you're working on is nothing. So don't rush to do that yourself.
Yeah. That's great advice. So how can our audience connect with you or learn about your work?
You're free to follow me on Instagram. I think that will be the easiest way to see the most recent updates about my films, and I post a lot of random stuff as well. But yeah, so my Instagram is Maggie Lee, MAGGIELI 7920.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about the upcoming projects. Are there any upcoming projects or collaborations you're excited about?
I'm excited about all the projects that I take in, but particularly it's interesting. Starting from last year, it's been an animal project year for me. I've been filming pandas, red orangutans, AI pig farms, shrimps. What are the animals? Llamas, like just a lot of them. But they're not like, no offense, but they're not like the nature BBC animal documentaries like that, but more still kind of an indie doc, trying to explore, for example, the relationship between animals in the modern world with human beings in different settings, or like for pandas, obviously panda being the cutest animal, but also the symbolism for a lot of things politically going on. I mean, but it's not a political film, but it's more like a symbolism of this cutest thing playing a vital role of the relationship between China and the rest of the world. So yeah, that is a big part of, those are different projects. So the animal part, but then also there's a 20-year long documentary that I'm taking on. Actually, it has 5 more years left. But I'm very excited about it, because once I hear about somebody's ready to spend 20 years on a project, I know it's going to be good, because of that level of dedication and belief in what the film can bring.
Wow.
So yeah, I think due to NDA reasons, I can't reveal too much about that
Yeah, no worries.
documentary.
No.
But yes, that, and also I'm very excited about my own project. It will be my first directorial debut as well. So I started off over a year ago, and it's going to be about this legendary neighborhood bar in Shanghai that opened up in 1994, so it's almost 31 years old now. I know that doesn't sound that old to the US or like Europe, where they have almost like 100-year-old bar or something. But in the context of bar is an alien and borrowed idea from the West in China, we just never had bars. And literally, this is, if not but one of the oldest bars in China in general and in Shanghai. And the context being in a cosmopolitan in Shanghai, where everything, if you've been to China, you realize how fast things are. Like in Shenzhen, of course, but then also in the metropolitan Shanghai, things just get replaced, and not even naturally, because the competition and everything is so fierce. Once you don't profit, or once you don't make money, or in any way, you will just get replaced easily. You just see new cafes, bars, karaoke's, and pop out every month, and that's just the norm. Then you will appreciate how rare this bar is, and how incredible of a spiritual and mental sanctuary it has become for the creative industries and generations of, let's call it, intellectuals, right, in Shanghai, that for them. And to be able to I also intended for it to be an observational doc, so I would just have my camera and record all of the conversations and drunkenness and fights and everything that's happening in this bar, with the great live experimental music happening in that. It's almost like a miniature of modern China, of the unheard and unseen voices and people of modern China that are creative, that are frustrated, that are, what are Chinese people like? It's that question of, why do Chinese people think the way they think, and what are the things they care about? What propelled them to make that business decision is really so deeply rooted in how they take care of their parents who are 90 years old and have dementia. Like, there's so much intricate connections between that, but most of the times the outside world focuses on all the political decisions or business decisions or technology decisions China make. They don't try to understand what a Chinese mentality is like, and it's all really worth digging out.
And everybody has a story, so you have lots of stories from everyone. That's amazing.
Yeah, in
so
the bar
do you do like an interview each one of them, or you just
I hate interviews.
Place the camera and then let them speak?
I don't hate interviews, but I hate putting talking heads face on camera. Direct interviews directly into the documentary. I hate that format. So I do interviews, but for the purpose of getting more information out of the 30 years of history that this bar has endured, and maybe use some of the voiceovers for the visuals. But I do very observationals, which is why every night I would have almost nonstop 6-7 hours of footage up to 3 a.m. in the morning, recording just different conversations in Mandarin and Shanghainese dialects, and they talk about everything. They talk about love and marriage and cheating and music, and how some musicians go to jail because they got caught smoking weed one time. Like, all of these fascinating facts about modern China that don't get told. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm looking forward to watch it.
Thank you.
Lots of editing, probably.
Lots of editing, lots of translation, even, because the dialects, I don't even understand it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So, who would you like to thank or acknowledge for supporting you on your journey?
I would like to thank Jennifer Ball, who was my, I jokingly call my California mom, who's been my trooper since day one. She's this pink hair rock band singer lady from California, that I accidentally met in my college years because she came as a visiting professor in my university, and our friendship and bonding ever since, you know, for the past over 10 years have just been tremendously helpful. Isn't even the world, isn't even, you know, half of what she did for me, because like I said, I spent my whole life in China, so I'm very like connected to the traditional and Asian culture and everything. But like being able to speak to you right now in this level of English, or think in this mentality, or work on global projects, I would say she was my mentor starting step one when I was in my early 20s. My mom raised me to be 20 years old, gave everything she could, but we grew up in a rural area that's very poor and everything, but basically I felt like my California mom took over in my early 20s and really showed me the world, the US, and then everything else, and think and believe in myself. It's such different culture for raising a kid too, because Chinese parents tend to do the criticizing and putting you down, and my mom still called me fat on a daily basis. That kind of culture, to a California mom who's just always encouraging you and giving you endorsement, giving you the push and everything. And that's just like, that really was a big step for me to become more international and to have anything that came later in my life possible. Really, it started with that mentality switch, and with the belief in myself changed to believing that I can have more and achieve more. So yeah, a big thank you to Jennifer.
That's amazing. Okay, we're getting to the end. That's all, folks. Maggie Lee, everyone. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right.